Well, hello everyone. Welcome to a new episode of our show, Tawheed, Spiritual Unity of the Three Principles. Today we have a really special guest this time. Uh, we have the Mental Health Transformations Group, and the topic today is the pursuit of truth in mental health. I think today's topic is of a paramount importance as we see like in today's society, especially with the pandemic, the level or the percentage of people getting mentally ill is increasing dramatically. And that's due to pandemic and thought, of course. But yeah, I was looking forward to this episode, especially because all the guest speakers today have experienced mental health problems, and they've came out of that, and so I'm just looking forward to hear from each and every one of you. So without further ado, I'll give it over to Harry, and then
thanks, Omar. Yeah,
Harry is the co-host and a guest today. So
thanks.
amazing.
And of course, as always, the group participation is the key element of great sharing in this type of show. This is an interesting time. Several of the members could not make this meeting. Two of them because of work and personal restrictions. Two others felt tremendous pain in their life and physical pain, and they decided not to come on. So Joe and I are the only two members of the group, and but we'll do the best we can with it. And this is a transition time for our group. Our group started organically with one person, John Stiley, and then others came in, and all of a mental health transformation to the purity of truth within themselves. And the transformation happened as a group and as individually. And it was very, very powerful. And then we started to go out and talk to different groups. And then we sort of took the summer more or less off. And Joe and I did about 20 podcasts at webinars in non-3P circles and so on. And as on Salt Spring Island, the group came together, and then they have now gone on their individual lives and had their individual problems and scenarios to deal with. Very similar to what I had to experience when I left Salt Spring Island and had a level of understanding, but not free of what the world was going to bring to us. And so this is probably going to be for a while our last group talk, and we're just going to go back as a group and meet weekly and just build up the health and sharing within the group. But the wisdom of each of the members is unbelievable. Yesterday when we met, I was thinking, well, maybe we're getting too fragmented, maybe we're separating, but the love was just too big. It just touched my heart so much. And one of the members said, the group, he lives a kind of isolated life, and the group brings tremendous sustenance and love. And he's so beautiful when he shares. And it just broke my heart to make me realize we do not control the form. What happens in its own way. It happened to Sid. He'd get excited, enthusiastic, and then it would dissolve into nothing much. And it happened over and over again. And I just see this as a got attracted to a beautiful idea of taking it out into the world. And now we're just going to get a little more solid with what we understand. We're going to share a little bit deeper. with what we want, the spiritual essence of Sid's message, and we're going to let it grow organically. And boy, does that feel better than trying to make something happen, guys. It has been a beautiful lesson. Part of it, just going to Salt Spring, hanging out with Roz and Jim and sharing in different ways, but just being content with what life brings. And as soon as that happened, the group became alive in my heart all over again. And so I really want to thank Joe and John and Damir, and just really touched my heart greatly, Joe, really amazingly. And really, I woke up today and all this stuff was happening, and I just said, it's perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect the way it is. It's perfect the way we're sharing today with you guys in its way. But what I do want you to understand, there has been unbelievable transformation. And I've always said they're the strength of the group. So Joe, why don't you tell them a little bit about your story, that you sort of like what you told when we're on a show last Saturday or so, and it'll get the ball rolling, and then feel free to participate.
Okay, thank you, Harry. That was beautiful. Yeah, so I mean, as a child, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue, and that meant a lot of pain and a lot of zonked out in a chair and being carried upstairs by my mum. So that also meant I missed a lot of my school. And then from that, I was a lot of diagnosis and mental health issues that kind of lasted through most of my life up to now, up to I found this understanding. And I went through different mental health professionals and CBT and hypnotherapy, which would have a temporary effect on me. And I'd feel good for a little while, but then it would just drop straight back to where I was. And so I was always trying to go out and then just making all these stories up and thinking, interpreting things that people would do, and just get really anxious the whole time. And it was always on the negative side. And I always have to get reassurance from my mum. And so my whole life went like that. And I was told by doctors I'd never get well again. And that just took away my hope, really. I just resigned myself to a life like that maybe there'd be a miracle cure. And so it was quite a depressing place to be, really. And most of my life was just spent just running over the past and wishing it could be different. And then it was beginning of the lockdown. There was a book I was suggested to read that talked about thought. And I'd read it a couple of years before and just didn't really grasp it. And it was just like, it seemed interesting, but I only got about 3/4 of the way through. And it was just this time I realized I had loads of spare time. So I thought I'll start reading again. It just happened to be that book I'll pick up again. And when it really talked about how we think we're a camera catching the outside, but really we're a projector, I really saw something in that. And then how it talked about how we create our issues through thought and how reality through thought. And it just really, really changed something in me, that I've suddenly realized I wasn't a victim to life. I wasn't a victim to the world or what was happening on the outside. I actually had the power in myself to create health and to create a new world for myself. And it just gave me so much hope. And I just got really excited. And then I saw Sid Banks' name mentioned in there. And so I was wanting to find out more. And I put his name into YouTube, and it was the Hawaii lectures was the first one that came up. And the first big thing I remember that really hit me on there is when he said that we all live in mental health, but don't realize it. And it was just really like, there was just gave me such new hope that I didn't have before, because I realized that actually my life wasn't kind of metaphorically over in a way. And I just wanted to consume as much as I could of his and just find as much as I could of Sid's. And it was the Enlightened Gardener was the first book I read. And I just got this really, really great feeling. I don't know why I got it. I couldn't even tell you what it was about the book. It just came, and I just got into my like, wow, this could change the world. Why doesn't everyone know about it? And I just started messaging like people and some of the 3Ps facilitators and sending like massive questions and loads of questions. And then they didn't reply, and I kind of got a little bit disappointed, and then making up stories about that, what that meant. And so I was going through that, and then I did kind of got back into my thinking again and got really anxious. And I just remember waking up one night and it just felt like this voice came up from inside me. And suddenly then I was just feeling like, it was just this, I mean, I call it love, but love doesn't really do it justice. It was just this feeling I'd never felt before, and it was just pouring into me. And the only way I could describe it is the power of God. That's what it felt like to me. And then it was just that I'd been charged up as well, and it had been almost like I've been plugged into a plug socket, and someone was just putting thousands and thousands of volts through me. And then it just, my mind just went so fast, it was just spinning. And the only way I can describe it is if you put a car in neutral and you put your foot down on the gas pedal and it's just in the red line the whole time. And so at times I was getting these insights, but it was kind of switching between insights between that and really fast mind. And at times it felt like I was just, my consciousness was in the universe, and it was almost like it was trying to leave my body and just go. And it was kind of frightening in some ways, but it was beautiful as well, and they kind of floating in that. And my family said it was like I disappeared for 3 weeks, because they said they felt like they'd lost their Joseph, and they got quite worried because I'd be pacing around. I couldn't sit still for more than 2 seconds. I couldn't even watch TV. My mum was just gone. Or I tried reading a book and it was gone. And so I was experiencing this, which was quite frightening in some ways. And I've tried different techniques, Tai Chi and exercise, and probably 2 or 3 seconds, my mind would slow down and then it would just be straight up again. And then I got into my head that I'd been enlightened and I was going to go around the world and be the new Sydney Banks. But I felt really terrible. And I was like inside kind of crappy. And I was just thinking, well, I'm supposed to be enlightened and I feel crappy. And everyone's saying how beautiful enlightenment is, but I feel really bad. Why do I feel this way? I started thinking, I wish I wasn't enlightened. I hate being enlightened. I want to go back to how I was. And I was thinking that was going to be the rest of my life then, that I was going to be like that and how bad it was. And then suddenly this new thought came into my head that, no, this is not an enlightenment experience. This is your thinking doing it. And like that, my mind just went straight down. Like someone had taken their foot off the gas pedal. But it was then that I started, because I'd watched some of Dr. Bill Pettit's videos, and I saw how he talked about how mental illness and feelings and that, or alarm system of our stressful thinking. And I noticed that I was suddenly getting this feeling in my brain, and it felt not pain, but like pain, but no hurting. And that it came back to me what Dr. Bill Pettit said. And just without even trying, I didn't try anything. I just noticed that feeling and it went on its own. And then it came back again, and I noticed it again, and it went. And then I did it about 5, 6 times, and it just went and never happened again. And so it felt to me like I'd been spirit walking. That's what it felt like when I'd gone into consciousness or gone into universe. And I saw suddenly on Facebook, this advert came up for a webinar, 3 principles from an Indigenous perspective. And so that was something I was drawn to do. I thought I must do this because I really want to ask this question. And I watched the show, and then I went on and to ask this question. And kind of like the time I was quite a bit bravado, a bit overconfident that I wasn't scared to ask these questions. And I went on and I was asking one of the ladies, Indigenous lady on there. And then Harry came on, and I saw it as, I started saying about, I saw it as all these different labels and diagnoses. And Harry said, don't concentrate on the labels. This is spiritual gifts. And how he's seen like Indigenous people, they would see it as bad spirits, when actually really it was a gift. And then there was this massive realization in me, and I kind of my face changed really, and people saw, you can see it on the video, and it was like, oh yeah, well, actually, wait a minute, maybe I'm not a negative experience. And then I really changed, and then Harry contacted me after that and invited me to the group. So I came, and at the first I was just so charged up, and I was just interrupting, and I was just wanting to talk. But Harry would point it out, and then I would have like kind of visions. And one I remember it was almost like the vision I was a jet engine, and it was spinning really fast, and then the jet engine slowed down, and I felt I could hear it in my mind and everything. The engine just go ooh, really slow, and I'll get experiences like that. And it just kept changing. And then the other people, I started to hear them in the group, how wise they were. And it was like, wow, actually, these people have been through experiences and they've got so much wisdom, and their wisdom would touch my wisdom. And it was like we became one. And when we became one and we was in that feeling, and it wasn't even more, I would have problems before and thought, I'm going to come and talk to the group about my issues. But then we talk about a spiritual reality and our insights, and I'll just completely forget my issues. They'd just be gone. And I just have a great feeling after, and just thinking, oops, I was supposed to talk about my problems and I forgot to. And so, yeah, I've just seen that. And then I've just realized in the gratitude, and I'll say thank you to Harry as well, because he was saying thank you for inviting me, and the assistance he's given me, and the help with my growth, and how I've actually been able to see. And also thanks to his show, because there's something I heard on his show as well, when they said about with Allah that Allah can only show himself to people for a short time because of his power. And I just realized that with me, when I had that experience, that I could only experience that for a short time because of the charge it gave me. And so, yeah, and then it was just, I was in this mental health group and I thought, well, why don't we come and give a talk to them, because they're struggling in that and they could do with this help. And so I asked Harry and invited them. I said, yeah, and we came and we gave this talk and it went really well. It was a massive, great feeling. There were smiles on people's faces. And we saw then that actually, yeah, this could go out to the world. This could really do something, that people are struggling and not finding something, that we have something to give them. And so we had another one for a charity and we arranged to do that. And then how we kind of together thought, actually, yeah, why don't I contact more people? And so I started just searching on the internet and it just seemed to happen by accident. It was funny, really, because one got quite annoyed with me and said that, oh, this is not we're not a podcast, but we're just a search engine, but why don't you try this? And then through that, I found these other websites and I started finding more and more podcasts then. And so I started contacting them, and then we sort of thought, well, actually, I could be a communications manager because I'm actually really good at contacting people and liaising with people. I didn't even realize it. And I started doing that. And then when we created this video as well, and I remember I thought, well, I can't really create a video. I've never done that in my life. And I just thought, oh, I just mess around with it. And Harry would suggest to do things. I would say, like, sod off, Harry, I can't do that stuff. And I've never done it before. And I kind of feel a little bit annoyed about it. And then like an hour or two later, I just get a new insight that actually, why don't you try this? And I try it and it'd work. And I saw that. And yeah, so I just saw really in my life how much I was restricting myself just through my own thinking and my own ideas about myself, when really that's not true. And that was just holding back my potential. And I realized that when I access this power by getting past my ideas of myself and my little mind and this little gnawing away at me all the time, a little yapping, like the Jack Russell it is. And when I get past and see that actually, yeah, that I've got the power as much as anyone else, why am I no different to anyone else? Because I'm part of God as well. I'm not like, it's not God and everyone else is God and then there's Joe on his own that he's not God. That's just stupid thinking. And then when I realized that actually, yeah, I'm that power as well. And it's through the gratitude and through the positive feelings. And I want to say thanks to Jim as well, because being with him, I've grown so much since, and was as well. And thanks for Harry as well for pointing out when I've gone down the wrong paths and kind of got a little bit lost back in my ego. Because yeah, it happens still sometimes. It's so easy. It's such a tricky little thing. It will get you back in it at times. So yeah, I'm so grateful. And thank you to John as well for his wisdom, and everyone else in the group and everyone else here as well, because this show has been really helpful too. So yeah, thank you.
Maybe Jim and Roz, you could see some of the changes you've seen in Joe, just to sort of help a little bit, because we're all ordinary people with labels and scenarios and images, and Joe has broken a lot of them, and he has a lot more to break. And guess what? So do I. You know, it's who we are. And it's helped me to be A, an ordinary person, and B, to appreciate how the three principles transform the craziest guy in the universe, which before was me, and then Joe joined to be a person in that area, but it changes everybody who is touched by them. Whether your label is addiction, whether it's rapist, whether it's mental health, etc. So Jim and Roz, maybe you could share a little what you've seen in the softness and beauty of Joe Fletcher. Just as a specimen, Joe, don't take it personally.
I'll just say very briefly, I don't feel that I know Joe very well, other than what I've seen on Heartfelt and through the contact we've had. But I remember how fast your mind was going and you were having difficulty sort of focusing. And now I see you as a warm, loving person. And that's lovely.
Joe, it's been really wonderful watching you make progress in settling down, calming down, and above all, in your so much. You have so much energy, and you are driven to finding out as much as you can about the three principles and sharing as much as you can. And as you're slowing down, your sharing seems to be getting deeper, and your commitment, or I guess how you might call it rigor, towards caring is at the heart of you right now. You genuinely care for people unconditionally, and you continually reach out to people to help or to find out more for yourself, which is a helpful thing for all. You've been working on writing articles, and you're continually searching for truth, new metaphors for truth, and it's all been paying off for you. You continue to grow, Joe, and don't stop growing. Another thing I want to comment on, it's not directly Joe now, but in terms of all of us, and you were mentioning it, Harry, in the word ordinariness. Really, all any of us has to do is live an ordinary, happy life. That's where the search comes home for you. And there's so much safety, there's so much warmth, there's so much goodness and kindness in being an ordinary person, and not having, personally, I often grapple with, should I have notoriety of some sort, or should I be sharing on high levels with lots of people? And that may or may not come about, but what really is the most important thing to be sharing is the value of an ordinary life. Not a dull life, an ordinary life, appreciating the innate energy of everything. Your kitchen, your bedroom, your little cozy home, your garden, your car, your material goods that you treasure and appreciate and love yourself by caring about, your family, your friends. This is where it's at, actually. This is exactly where it's at. And this is opportunities for everyone to share with everyone through living this ordinary life and not being concerned with your ambition to be wealthy, or your far off objectives that cause you so much confusion and grief, wanting to be richer than somebody else, or setting a goal of how wealthy you should be, or how famous you want to be, or how much power you're gathering. These are all false gods. What you want is to be sharing a loving, kind demeanor, and gaining with that sharing as you do, because that's how you build trust and you learn from trust. When Sid was asked, how do I gain in consciousness? How do I become enlightened, if you would? The answer was, find somebody you trust and listen to them. And my experience is that, the people that I trust and listen to guide me towards living an ordinary life. And not getting our brains all caught up in the material world and what we think we should be doing. What we think we should be doing will always be the opposite of what we should be doing. Anyway.
That's the essence of the message. Each member, the 5 other members, they all came with a common characteristic. They had, I didn't create the breakthrough that they had. I am the lead coach of the group, but they have already had teachings from other teachers in the group who taught them about thought and the role of thought, etc. And I just saw that even though they look like losers by the image of the world. They were the winners of the world. They had uncovered a jewel, and they lacked confidence in it because nobody was telling them they were beautiful. Nobody was telling them that they had wisdom. And I could feel it in them. I didn't use this to assess it. I could feel it in them. And with that feeling, all I had to do was really teach them a little bit about the spiritual connection. See, they all have that. There are people in 3 principles who are just wanting to be fixed with their problem. Great. But there are other people in 3 principles who want to lift their level of consciousness into the spiritual reality of the unknown. Beautiful. These are the people that were attracted to the group, to go into the unknown. But they had to have a feeling of confidence inside themselves. Now that I'm good at, because I'm good at working with people so that they are confident in themselves. And the other thing that I heavily emphasized was, don't listen to me. That's not the message. That's where I got lost listening to Sid. I gave him the credit, and it held me back for 40 years. I did not want any member of this group to be held back by a belief that I had the answer, because I know who I am. And I also know who Sid is to a level, and there is a big difference. There's no problem there. That's obvious. So we worked, and as Joe started to share, let's go to this Phoenix group, mental health group, and give a talk, and the Suffix user group, and then all these podcasts. The sharing of the group became more and more obvious. And what became obvious is that Joe and the other 4 members were the key components of the group. I was just a facilitator and happened to be invited to come on and share the experience. But yet I had to be a coach. Yet I had to play my role in the situation. But the essence has been to watch their beauty and then watch the transformation not only happen in the group and individually, but it changes. And that's what we're seeing now. And that ordinariness, Jim, that you're talking about, that allows you to let your image go. I had an image. Turned out it wasn't the image that was happening. And it was easy to let go when you go to a place like Salt Spring and share with friends. See, just sharing with Jim and Roz is like our group. We get together, right, Joe? It's just, talk a little bit about the feeling of friendship and support that we have in it.
Yeah, I just first like to say thanks to Jimmy Ross's where it means a lot, and an extraordinarily ordinary life.
Right back at you, Joe.
Yeah, when you touch that feeling, it's just, you get people who you become that one with, and there is no mental health problems anymore. There is just that oneness, and we are all that. And even through a computer screen, you can feel it. And if you can feel it with people who are 1,000 miles away, I mean, what does that say, really? And we can connect even with that and become one with that. I mean, doesn't that not say to you that the whole everything is one? And yeah, like I say, when you got it, you no longer have your issues and your problems when you're in that space. That's just not there anymore. There's just that feeling, and that feeling is pure beauty, pure love. And you know, then that's who we really are. That everything else is that illusion that we create from ourselves and make a big deal out of. And we kind of think, yeah, all these little things are big deals, and really we are that love. And when we're that love, nothing's a big deal, because that love conquers all. And then we conquer the world with that love. And yeah, and the gratitude of it, and seeing that everyone is beautiful, and we all that love is within every single person and every single creature on this planet. And no one's no different, no one's greater or less than anyone else, because we are all that wisdom, and everyone has that access to it. And when you hear one person say it, you don't get it from them, but it touches your wisdom and awakens your wisdom. And that's what you get when people are high level of consciousness. It awakens your wisdom more. And then they speak to your wisdom, and your wisdom speaks to theirs, and then we become at one, and we become God. Then the God, the oneness of everything. And that's it. Where the healing is, it's not in medication. It's not in talking about the past or talking about your issues. It's in finding that who you truly are. And you find who you truly are when you see the mirror of yourself in the God in other people. And then you know, yeah, I'm God too.
Beautiful, Joe. And Omar,
Great.
it's the same feeling I have with Tawhid. There's just so much love that's been shared between us and on the show that you just can't help but have your heart excited about this Muslim feeling, this feeling that you and I are sharing. Just to even to say, Omar is in Casablanca and I'm in Tawasin, Canada. Even that excites me, Omar.
Because Casablanca sounds more romantic than where you are.
It does. I have to agree with that. It does. Yeah, that's.
I have a question for Joe, actually, because he started. I really loved what you shared with us today. And so what do you think was the turning point where you actually realized that it's all in your head? And how you could relate that to, or maybe, now you hear people talking, like, oh, it's your thinking. People who are talking about they're suffering from depression or this or anything that you could relate to, because you've been there, you've seen it. And what would you say to, like, what was the turning point where you realized, oh, actually, oh my God, it's all in my head?
Yeah, sure.
And it's in people's head too. Can you share more about that?
The first point, like I say, when I read the book by Murray Olson, The One Thought, and how it talked about how you could be in different situations and have different feelings. I just realized how I'd always been a glass half empty person, and that I was just how I was interpreting things. And I think one of the really, really big turning points for me was I did a course with Bill Pettit, and I got really excited that I was going to ask these questions, and I had these things I'd try to find out about where the word God came from and that. And so it was my turn, but I'd kind of really got stuck in my thinking about it and got quite nervous. And I asked him and that, and I was quite disappointed with his response at the time and thought he seemed a bit offy with me and a bit aloof. And I was going to email him for it and say, like, oh, you seemed off with me. And then I watched back the webinar and his face was completely different. He was like really attentive, really, really listening to me, really that. And that really hit me then that actually, wow, I got this situation completely wrong because of my state of mind at that point. And with depression and that, I just saw that actually, rather than saying, oh, it's your thinking causing it, actually that's the call from God, that you're lost from who you really are. You're kind of, I mean, you hear a lot now in some religious teachings, they talk about the death of the spirit when you're disconnected. And to me, it's the call back from your spirit. To me, it's not your thinking causes your feelings. The feelings is the call from God to come back to who you truly are, to come back home. And when I see that actually I don't even have to fear my feelings and that, I just have to let them go, just let them pass, don't resist them, love them for that. Actually, yeah, they're the part of the divine as well, they're part of it as well. And yeah, so it's all the perfect design, because it's all calling me back to my true self, to find my real potential and my real power.
I love that, Joe. You know what you just mentioned just remind me of this metaphor of in hotels they have this hair dryers where it reaches certain level of warmth, it just turns off by itself to cool down. And it's the same with our thinking. When we think a lot, we have depression. So it's kind of to take a break from our thinking. But what we do, we just stick with that and we go to places we don't want to go to. And Dr. Bill says this a lot about the first thing that happens to us is getting caught up in a thought. And then, our mood goes down. And then it gets, physical, like we get some physical illness. It shows up in our bodies. And like, I remember like when I get sick, it's normally it has to do with my like how I'm thinking, the level of consciousness I'm in. If I get caught up or I stress a lot about something, I get sick. It's kind of just to bring me back to my normal state.
Funny as well, you mentioned the hairdryer, because that was another thing Dr. Bill Pettit said to me about chronic fatigue syndrome. That it was the divine helping you, because he calls it like a hibernating bear. He said to me that it'll put you back to sleep, and it is like a thermostat, isn't it, really? That I've noticed that now, that when I get anxious and that it'll shut me down again. So it's shutting my body down to protect my body. And I've seen that actually when I get anxious and I try to fight that anxiety and I try to get rid of it. That's another thing I try to do since being in the principles, and yeah, that doesn't work. It comes back with a vengeance, that's for sure. And so yeah, it is that as well. Like, I know they talk a lot about it in Muslim teachings, don't they? Non-resistance and non-attachment. And I found that's really important as well. It's not to resist and not to attach to it, not to see the thoughts as being me, but to see them as just passing, and I don't have to attach to the stories to them. So I can have any thought and not attach to that. But as soon as I start resisting it and try to attach to the feelings and thoughts, that's when I start to suffer. And I'm moving more and more towards that, actually. And I just want to say as well, before you guys talking about gratitude, that I do want to thank God, because I did a little prayer before this for God to help me. And some of this I'm talking about, I'm not even thinking, it's just coming. So yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, love this, Joe. You know, you mentioned about prayer. I did this interview with my first actually, clients that, this lady that I've met in the park. I shared her story a lot, and she accepted to do this interview with me yesterday. And she didn't want to go in public and show her face, because she's famous. And so I'm just going to share this audio with few people who and just the audio version, of course. She mentioned something that she didn't tell me beforehand, that when she realized the power of thought that was playing out in her life, and her, being bipolar and being depressed and not sleeping well, when she realized that, she starts actually connecting. She went back to her. She's Christian. She felt connected to truth again, and she starts praying a lot. And whenever she feels stressed or anything like that, she just, pray, and then she just go to sleep. She doesn't really worry about it like she used to, and that's so powerful. It's hopeful.
But I've even found now I've started just praying for thanks for my food, because I read something as well. They're saying they tested the molecules and that, and they actually change depending on the feeling you put out. And so it's even saying grateful to the food for providing your life, and grateful to the molecules for coming into you. And it's just any gratitude you can find really in anything. And there's always gratitude, just gratitude for breath. And actually I found out that spirit originally meant breath. And so yeah, it's just that, isn't it? Grateful to be alive, grateful to have a house to live in, grateful to have food to eat, grateful to be in a country where you don't have to fear being arrested all the time. Or even if you do, grateful that you've got free will, you still got the choice of freedom of thought. Even if you're locked away in a concentration camp, they still can't take away your free will, and they still can't take away your freedom of thought. And they still can't take away your choice of creating feelings. So there's always something to be grateful for.
Absolutely.
Yep. Power of prayer is not to be underrated, and it is in almost all major religions. It's certainly part of the indigenous world of a prayer, and it connects us to the oneness if we pray from the inside out. And if we pray from the outside in, what happens is we look good, but we're just talking. And Omar, maybe you could you again talk a little bit about, in the Muslim world, they pray a lot, I believe 5 times a day. Can you again, maybe, because prayer is like in Dear Liza, Sid didn't talk much about prayer, but in Dear Liza, he did. And it quite touched me, the power of this little girl who had nothing, but she had the power of prayer and the power of wisdom that she had gained. But she was trying from the inside out rather than just, you know, lying down and doing a ritual.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, it was the 50 prayers a day beforehand, but the prophet made it 5 prayers for us. You know, he asked Allah, and then that's actually the story behind it. So it's now 5 days. And you know, for me, prayers is like we are lucky actually here in a Muslim country. We've got the adhan, which is like this reminder of this is prayer time, and this reminder is actually kind of bring me back to the present moment. If I'm caught up in what I'm doing, it actually brings me back to what I'm doing, like to the present moment. You know what I mean? Like, because sometimes I just find myself wondering how I'm going to fix this problem I'm having, and you know, what I'm going to eat, and all of a sudden you hear, you know, the adhan, and then you just fall into that space of presence again. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you don't. It's busy in your mind. You just don't hear it, or if you're maybe just focusing on something so deeply that you're not listening. But the purpose of the adhan for me, it's just to bring me back to the present moment so I could pray. And praying is just you know, asking the infinite intelligence for what I want. If I am feeling nervous and I don't know what's gonna happen next, just pray that everything gonna go well. If someone is sick, just pray that they wish them a speedy recovery. It's actually, for me, prayer is just put me in this place where like I am not the one who's running the show. And so for me, that's again, like where the ego collapses. I'm not in the picture. Me. I just jump out of that, and I'm reminded of the beauty of like this infinite intelligence that runs through everything and everyone, and that is connecting us. And it's just amazing to operate from that place and live from that space.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
I was just going to add to that, when you start to realize that even the me is a thought, and that the real me is before the thought.
Yeah, I'm making up me,
Yeah.
small me.
And then maybe could you tell us what prayer means to you?
What
Anand is
prayers
from
means-
Pakistan. Just go ahead. Sorry.
Prayer is like a love letter from Allah, from God for me. Like whenever we hear adhan, it's like a reminder that just come back to me, talk to me. You can put your load off towards here, and you don't need to worry about anything. Like you can't control anything. You can just share it with me, and your burdens will get off, inshallah. So yeah, that was my belief. That is my belief. It's actually a love letter from Allah for me, where I could share anything with him. And it's actually, especially a situation we are living in Pakistan, where we need to accept the society and our elders. It's quite hard to it's quite easy when we connect with Allah, when we connect with 5 times a day with him. It gets quite easier for us to pass such kind of challenges in our life. As I just started, me and my son, we just started a project where we are visiting old homes, and we just are doing listening partnership with them. We could just hear them, what they have inside them. We're not doing anything. We were just there to just listen them, what kind of a challenges they have been going through, what's hard for them. So it is such a wonderful experience with them. Like, yeah, sometimes it's hard, like to listen their story, but yeah, it comes back to inside out and outside in. So I really love this experience. As tomorrow I will have another meeting with them. So yeah, a few days back when I had a meeting with them, I was inside out at that time. I was connecting with them from heart to heart. And when I went towards my videographer, I was just sharing with him like what kind of a challenges. Sometimes challenges were quite hard for them, where their own family members would put them off from their own houses, where they would snatch all their money and all their properties, even though they have their own right. But in Pakistan, it's quite difficult to have your own right. So my videographer told me, like, Anam, raise your conscious level and just put your emotions on a little gap. And that thought just came in my mind. Oh my God, he's just reminding me of like, raise your conscious level. And you don't need to be outside and you just need to be inside out. So yeah, that's
Beautiful,
all
Anna.
That's how our group
Beautiful.
is. Yeah, that is.
Yeah,
beautiful.
I want to thank Anam for being on camera, because it takes courage for a Muslim woman to be on camera, especially nowadays. We have like a misunderstanding about that. So thank you for being on camera and talking and sharing with us your sharing, because that matters and what you say matters. And I just loved your insights and sharing. Thank you, Anna.
You're
Go ahead, Harry.
welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome.
It enriches the show, Anand, and that's the same thing in the group, with each person sharing like just what you shared. That feeling lifts, and we all get enriched. And as Omar brought up, it's also very invigorating for non-Muslims to see a woman all dressed up the way you are, sharing as a beautiful spiritual being and an ordinary person. It's teaching us, it's showing us what Omar was talking about, that courage, but mostly that beautiful feeling you shared.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, we are humans and we all are humans. And that just my dress up, it's just a step on thing. But inside, we all are the creation of our God as our own belief. So, yeah, humanity is there. And it's not about if someone else is from different background, we would leave them on their own path. No, we all are just humans and we are social, we are created in a way. So yeah.
So I'd like to wrap this up with Joe. Anand brought up a very, Omar and Anand brought up a very important point about labels. It's very easy to get caught up in labels, the mental health label, the Muslim label, etc. You know, the power of Omar and I is we never looked at labels. We just trusted the feeling, and it took us to where we are now. Joe, could you just, as a final topic, talk about labels and how you had to deal with that?
Well, something's just come to me. It was a conversation with someone who'd been in a psychiatric hospital, and they would tell me they'd had a beautiful spiritual experience. And then they started saying, yeah, oh, it's probably just me psychotic. And I said to them, well, how do you know you're psychotic? Like, what, who says you are? And then they kind of thought, actually. And I said to them, like, don't call yourself psychotic. That's a spiritual experience. And it's like that for me. I mean, we get, the West is just, to me, it's just a misunderstanding, really, that they think we're having a mental illness, but it's not. It's a spiritual experience to me. And it's who we are. And it's just, we don't realize it because the Western scientific way, isn't it, that science looks on the form and the medical doctors look at the form, and psychology is looking at the form and it's looking at the effect. It's not looking at the cause. And it's when that people just, we love to label things. I mean, we label a tree, but I mean, what does that really mean? If you was blind and you didn't know what a tree was, someone said a tree, wouldn't mean a thing to you, would it? And you try to describe something to someone who was blind and it was from birth. I mean, you try to describe a color, like you try to describe purple to someone who has no concept of purple. And it's like that with truth. If you've never experienced truth, I mean, how could you understand it unless someone explained it to you? And so we'd love to label all the time, and especially the English language, because I've talked to a few people who speak Arabic and Hebrew, and they say that other languages are actually a lot more descriptive, but the English language is very much label, isn't it? Everything has to have a label, and it's just, all it is just someone labeling each thing so we can identify something to another thing. And it's the same when they label you as mental illness, it's just putting you in a box saying you're that, when really that's just more like, you might be going through a dark time at that moment, or like I almost said, stuck in a fog. But that's all it is. It's just to signify where you are at that specific time. So a label to say, oh, look, he's in that box because he's experiencing that. And I've spoken to people as well, been diagnosed with things. And yeah, it's just because their moods go up and down. But it doesn't mean you've got a label, does it? Or because you've had a spiritual experience, well, who's to say to you that's not real? Who's to say that that's a mental illness? I mean, what gives them the right? What are they measuring that against? And who's to say that God doesn't exist? And I even saw a thing, someone talking about atheists, that actually, if you ask an atheist, when they concept God, I mean, it's the concept of God sitting on the cloud, isn't it? But if no one's really thought about what God really is, if you think about God, all that there is, I mean, who can deny that there's a universe, and who can deny there's an intelligence to everything? So, I mean, really, that's kind of checkmate, isn't it, to people who try to be an atheist or try to be something that tries to deny it. And so, yeah, a label is just a label. It's just a word that we've created to identify something in a form. And it's just someone's opinion, really. It's not truth, is it? It's just someone's intellectual opinion that they've picked up from other people, from their intellect. So, yeah.
And then Joe came to believe it. And then when he experienced the three principles, it exploded. He gave up his label. And one of the things I've loved about my experience with the Muslim community as well as the mental health community is we had an old friend over yesterday, Hafiz Bimchi, who is a Muslim, and he and I go back to 1976, and we had a beautiful relationship and still do, but we never once talked about I'm Jewish and he's a Muslim. All we talked about was truth or what we were experiencing in the moment. But we thoroughly enjoyed each other. We never bothered to get into this discussion. And we actually, it was like a teaching on Salt Spring. We weren't interested in the labels of people. They all came from different things. We were just touching Mark's energy, Jim's energy, and Jim was just an ordinary guy living in a log cabin with a beautiful woman, his first wife, and he'd be sitting on a couch with a big log with his foot pushing the log into the fire because he was too lazy to cut it up and just do it. And we were just hanging out, having a good time. And that's the mental health group. We're just hanging out, having a good time. And that's our Tahi group. We're just hanging out, having a good time. It's just fascinating for me, Anne and Omar, that there's a little exotic flavor in the conversation about something I'm not very familiar with. But no one can deny the feeling of Allah. Nobody can deny that. It's not when you express it. When Omar was talking about prayer, it was the expression, the feeling of love. And that's the feeling, the group. We learn and share and give up our labels. It seems to be a way of life and a lot of fun. I have never had so much fun with mental health problems in my whole life. Acute depression, I'm learning these words, acute depression, acute anxiety, acute addiction. That's our group. We don't talk about that. We talk about what Hafiz and I talked about, higher feelings of life. And that's
So
the answer to everything. Go ahead, Omar. Go
So
ahead.
to kind of wrap this up, I just want to share page 102 in Sid's book, The Missing Link, if that's okay with you guys. So it goes like, we must rid ourselves of yesterday's negative thoughts to receive today's new and positive feelings. I do not ask anyone to ignore their past experiences. This will be denial, and denial is not a healthy state. Instead, seek a clearer understanding of the past. Realize that the negative feelings and emotions from the past, traumatic experiences, are no longer true. They are merely memories, a collection of old, stale thoughts. As surely as rot slowly destroys the strongest steel, hate and negative thoughts erode the soul of humanity. Negative thoughts are like scratches on a window. They stop you from seeing life with clarity. When the negative thoughts cease, the scratches disappear and the window becomes crystal clear. Then the beauty and positive aspect of life can be seen. The past is dead. Forget what is old and dead and start life anew. Discard the restless hunting ghosts of yesterday and set yourself free to live the beauty of today. Change the pattern of your thoughts from a negative to positive. Automatically, the condition of your life will change for the better. And on that note, I would love to thank Joe and all our participants, and Harry Derbisky, of course, my amazing co-host. And yeah, would you like to say something before I end the recording?
No, I think this is a perfect place to say adios, amigos, and thank you for lifting my spirit. And thank you, Joe.
everyone.
And thank you, Joe, by the way. Very beautiful, very beautiful.
And thank you, Omar, as well, for having us on. And thank you, everyone who came, and thank you, Jim and Ross, and Nam as well. Thank you for your beautiful share. That was lovely.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Lottie.
Harry, as
Thank you,
well.
everyone.
Thank you.